our special work session this evening. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Too tall back there. Okay, so we will begin this evening. Welcome everyone. If anyone from the public would like to speak tonight, please complete one of the green comment cards available at the back table and give it to the board clerk when you're ready. There is a list of reminders regarding the rules for public participation. Please review those prior to commenting. At this time, I would like to invite our superintendent, Ms. Lockwood, to start the work session.
Thank you, President Slamo, Board. I'm going to start off by tonight we're here to talk about the Boys and Girls Club building. I'll just name it that since we know what all of that is. I'm going to start this discussion off just kind of giving a little background of how this all came about for Marion Community Schools to get involved in this situation. So I was contacted by the Boys and Girls Club out of Fort Wayne, and at that time of contact I was told that they were going to be closing their doors on the building and the programming here in the city of Marion. And during that process, they wondered if Marion Community Schools would be interested in procuring the building from Fort Wayne. And I said at that point in time, we talked about some of the cuts that are going to be coming up for the school system with Senate Bill 1 and different things like that. I told him that I would look at the financials, if he could send me the financials, and I would definitely talk to the school board on whether or not as a school system we would be willing to take over this building. So they sent me their financials and how much it costs to just run the building for a month. They sent financials on what their programming cost. And Mr. Mealy and I, or actually Mr. Mealy, he ran the numbers and looked at it in comparison to some other things that we were doing to see if this would be a fiscally responsible thing for us to do in taking over this building. I do want to say that at no time, or the entire time that I spoke with the Fort Wayne Boys and Girls Club, and I do want to make this clear, their intentions were is they were going to close this down. They were going to stop all programming at Marion and that they were going to close down the Boys and Girls Club. The timeline we were given is that they were not going to start the after-school programming in August. So I just want to make that clear, and I will turn it over now to Mr. Mealy, and he's going to talk about the financial side of this building and what that would mean for Marion Community Schools if we were to decide to take it.
Thank you, and just to give you a clarification on exactly what you'll see on the slides tonight is the facility comparison is currently our HYPE, our alternative school programming, is in a lease situation, and the Boys and Girls Club, if the facility was taken over by the district, those are the two comparisons where possibly your alternative school could be one of the programs that moves into that asset if you guys were to take that on as a board. So that's the comparison that you'll see as we go through. So it's mainly on the first slide, a straight facility comparison. And based off of the Boys and Girls Club numbers, building and maintenance and repair for a year would run about $27,357. And for HYPE in our lease right now, all of the maintenance and repairs to the building are included in the lease. And you can see there on the right-hand column under HYPE, our lease is $78,000 a year. Under utilities, the Boys and Girls Club utilities annually are $60,453.28. And you can see that the HYPE currently runs at $19,505. They do have a telephone and internet cost at the Boys and Girls Club of just over $4,000. And in the HYPE, it's not specified exactly where our telephone and internet, we believe that is included in some of the lease costs, but if you look at total annual cost, the Boys and Girls Club, just off of building maintenance, repair, utilities, and then telephone and internet is $91,959.60 to run annually as just a building. And with our lease at height and all of the other included utility costs, it runs $97,505 annually. So the difference there is just a little over, or just under $5,500. So on the next slide, we're looking at now for the board's knowledge. Again, this was never discussed that we would be taking over the programming, but just so you know and you're aware, the programming cost to continue as is at the Boys and Girls Club after school programming, the salaries there run about $224,601.58. Included insurance for personnel is $18,195.94. Contracted labor included in there is $5,280, and Social Security and Medicare runs $16,249.62. So that's a big piece to understand in this discussion. Although we were not asked at any point to continue the programming, it is transparency for the board to understand what that cost does incur for us. And I'll talk a little bit more about how difficult that would be to maintain. So this next slide just takes the two kind of comparison as simple as we could make it. So on the left-hand side, you see building comparison. And again, you see the numbers and you see that it's a positive to have the Boys and Girls Club versus running the situation we have at Hype on a lease for two reasons. One, annually it's going to be about $5,500 more positive for us to be the Boys and Girls Club if the board chooses to put that program down. And remember, this is only Hype. So that's why the check mark is there on that side. The other reason the check mark is there is the Boys and Girls Club is now an asset. It's not a lease. So it's simple as saying you're buying a home, not renting a home. And so now you have that additional land and structure as an asset to your school corporation. And that does, although there is an annual cost, that is a financial gain in the long run as a long-term asset. If you look at the personnel costs, again, very basic. We already have the Hype personnel and the programming in our budget. So we're not adding any additional costs to our budget. If we were to even consider doing and maintaining any programming after school at the same level that is being done right now, it would be a negative $264,257 on our budget to maintain all of their personnel and to do their programming. So then the next slide gives you a summary of Senate Bill 1, which is the Senate Enrolled Act at this point, and the impacts that it has. But just so everyone's aware, both the board and community, Senate Bill 1 introduces property tax reductions statewide through expanded homestead deductions and property tax credits, which reduce revenue to local taxing units, including public school districts like Marion Community Schools in Grant County. Now, schools are not the only one. This is going to impact every taxing unit with this new Senate Enrolled Act 1. We are seeing a reduction. In the next 3 years, we are anticipating $3 million that we're going to have to cut in our budgets. So adding $260,000 is really not feasible. While homeowners may see a tax relief, school operating budgets will face greater strain, particularly as state revenue and sharing mechanisms don't make up the shortfalls that we're going to feel locally. And for districts like Marion Community Schools, which rely heavily on local property tax funding for capital operations and transportation, if we were to add $264,000 on with the personnel, that would really, really put a strain on our budget. So again, it was never said that we had to, but I want to make you guys aware of what that would look like. So then in the next slide, the final summary with the Boys and Girls Club, it talks again about acquiring the Boys and Girls Club building allows Marion Community Schools to eliminate the $78,000 annual lease that we are currently dealing with, incurred at the Faulkner building for Hype. And then the Boys and Girls Club facility also shows better utility efficiency and eliminates lease liability, making that sustainable long-term asset to the district. And even though we're talking about tightening the belt, again, leasing $78,000, we don't know when the next lease comes up if that could increase because their costs may increase. So that could get higher each time we have to sign that lease. And again, their efficiency down at the Boys and Girls Club is a little bit better when it comes to utilities. While the facility swap is advantageous, retaining the current Boys and Girls Club personnel programming would result in that added annual cost of the $264,000. And it also talks about Senate Bill 1 more about the operating costs having to be reduced. And that's really where it's really important to understand when we're talking operating costs, we're talking local property taxes, which are only the operations bucket. Your education bucket is funded by your basic grant from state aid. So your local property taxes are in that operations budget, but you still have to move that money back and forth to be able to fund, and especially personnel. That's money now that we do move money from education to operations, from one bucket to the other, to maintain our operations. Now we'll have less money to be able to move if we continued programming as it was. Take the building straight as is, it's going to be cheaper, almost a wash, but it's going to be the asset. So in conclusion, I'm not going to read all of those because it just kind of goes over what we've already just talked about, but in taking ownership from a fiscal side, it is a benefit to have the building, if that makes sense. And I'll take any questions whatsoever.
Thank you, Mr. Mealy. Go ahead.
I'll go first. I got one stuff there. On the side of the Boys and Girls Club, it says that a contracted labor of a little over $5,000 a year. Do you know what that contracted labor consists of?
I don't have that broken down to know exactly.
I don't know what it is either.
Because I didn't know if that was, say, for example, mowing the yard or
I would anticipate that is what that is, maybe snow removal and
housekeeping or anything
yes.
like that. So, I mean, basically, if that was to happen, that could end up being
that could go away.
Is it okay if I keep going?
No,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Okay. What exactly are the after-school programs that they have, or they had when they was in operation? What programs did they have?
I can probably speak to that a little bit. We have between 85 and 100 of our students, it's Fort Marion Community School students, because we bust them over there. They did after-school programming over there for students from elementary through about 8th grade, I think. And Janice, I know you've spent some time over there. We actually paid for some teachers to go over there and do some tutoring. I think the Boys and Girls Club was open from after school until about 7:30 in the evening. So it takes staffing over there. There were some educational things they did. I think there were some physical activities that took place over there. They were fed supper while they were there and snacks. So those are the cost of the things for that program. I know that from talking with Chris Wallace, and that was the program director at the Boys and Girls Club, that he did some STEM activities and some different things with them over there, some reading programming. We worked really close with them and with our students that went over there. So that's what they did over there. It would be my hopes that eventually we could work towards and maybe get some people together and build a partnership on how we could do after-school programming in the future over there. But in order for us to have the money to do that and to make sure that we have a sustainable program and that we had somewhere for our kids to go, because honestly, when I first walked in, that was the first thing I said is what's going to happen to our kids. It's going to take some time for us to be able to get that together, and I think we would need some community partners that would help us fund that and that process of that. But for us to physically take on the $264,000 and roll it over and keep it going right now, we don't have the financial means to do that.
I just had two more things. I know that we have some really spectacular people employed here that do grant work. So I was wondering if we was to do that and reinstitute those programs, would there be ability to receive any grants to help pay for any of that?
There could be, and there could be some community partners that we could work with that could also help us seek some grants. That's what we would need time to do. And when you do things like that, you want to make sure what you're seeking are sustainable. So it's just not one grant and then you're in the same situation the next year. So that definitely would be a possibility. There are some community building grants and some different things that could be looked at. That even if we didn't know how to fill out, there are some community partners that we could work with to help us fill those out.
Okay, and I guess the last thing I have, and by no means am I against this whatsoever. I'm just trying to raise
No,
questions.
absolutely,
Good question.
absolutely,
Things that's been brought to me.
absolutely.
That's why we're here.
And I think of you had utilities for their, what was it, roughly $60,000 a year for the Boys and Girls Club. I don't think that will be an accurate price if we was to put hype in there and eventually do those programs, because right now that building sits empty a lot during the day. So if we're going to occupy it during the day and in the afternoon, I think those utility costs would change quite a bit.
Yeah.
That could be. Yeah, what we are able to estimate on our costs are what we have right now with what's going on in those buildings right now. I will tell you too that I have found out during this process that the Fort Wayne Boys and Girls Club did go in and take all property out of the building, and that's what I've heard. I've not been over there, so I really don't know as far as like what is even left in the building or what is going to be in there. So I just want to put that out there as well. Part of me is, I don't know, we just donated 50 iPads over there for our kids, so I don't know if that's gone now or if that's there, but I was told that there was a U-Haul that was taken there, and I guess they have that right, they own that building right now, but they did I was told they took the personal property out of there, so I just trying to be as transparent as I can on what I know about this situation.
Thank you. Are you finished?
I guess. Just one more thing.
Go ahead.
For a while, we was paying rent. I don't know if we still do. We were paying rent to store some of the old, classroom chairs, furniture, and things like that. That property does have a pretty good sized pole barn there. So
do.
we'd be able to utilize that to quit paying rent somewhere else.
Yes.
The pole barn is.
Yes, the pole barn that's come with the property, it's that whole corner of property that comes with it, so that is a lot of storage that is in there. And I have Dave here too, if anybody has like maintenance or any questions like that, he might be able to help answer.
Okay, I'm done.
That was my question also about how much land is it? Do we know?
It's that whole corner lot, so like you go in and the parking lot is kind of, there's that side parking lot there, and then it goes around to the parking lot in front. It goes to the railroad tracks, that pole barn, that big pole barn, storage barn is part of that.
Okay.
Then you have some vacant land there that is part of it. And actually I think it is a cell phone tower, is that right? Yes. There's a cell phone tower on the property as well. So it goes back, I think, is that a tree line, if I'm remembering right? So it's that property, that whole corner property right there.
And
I was going to say, do we get paid for that?
What condition the building is in?
I did say, because when I had spoken to you guys the first time, you wanted us to look at it, so I did take Dave and we took some maintenance people over there. So I don't know, Dave, do you want to, I can't talk about what we know from the short visit that was done over there, but you might be able to give them some more information.
We were there for about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to start maybe with the pole barn that you were asking about, we weren't able to gain access to that, so we don't know if it's got a good roof on it.
We are being broadcast, so if you could speak into the mic just to make sure that people are catching you, sorry.
So we don't know the condition of the pole barn. The condition of the building itself, it's got very good bones, but there are things in there that we would want to do that would incur costs and expense. And basically, if this is something you wanted to pursue at some point, we would have to, what condition do you want that in before we move the first thing in? Do you want us to take time to work on it, 6 months before we, let's say hype, since it's being compared tonight, before we move it in? Or do you want us to have it ready in 3 weeks to move in? So there's a lot of unknowns as far as timelines and that type of stuff, but it's got very good bones, but there's definitely work to be done in there. The building has a few problems. There's nothing major, but just like what Mr. Mealy and Ms. Lockwood was doing with the comparison, that one has good bones. So.
You got more to think?
No, that's
Okay.
it. I passed.
Yeah, so just to kind of piggyback off of what
We need a
Dan said, do you have an estimate in terms of ballpark figure, in terms of what it would cost to update it? But what's the range, just based off of what your assessment is?
It depends.
What we want to do.
It depends what you want to do. So, yeah. So there's all. I mean, you can get down into the nuts and bolts, which I have 2 pages. You have things like sidewalks, parking lots, floors, but like the biggest thing in there, if you look at the HVAC system, if you want to replace as is, what they have in there currently is from 2003. It's running. We could move in and it might last another 5 or 10 years. There's a lot of condensation in that building, a lot. When you get into the air conditioned portions of the building versus the non-air conditioned portions, the air conditioned portion has a lot of condensation. There's standing water in the light fixtures. You can tell from the ceiling tiles. If we were to go above ceiling, you might get into that thing that nobody wants to get into in their basement. We don't know what's up there. But that hot air hitting the cool air, tons of condensation, they have that problem in that building.
Well, given the information that's been presented here, it makes sense as a long-term investment, as you mentioned, Kyle. But it's those things that we can't see that I guess kind of concern me. I certainly wouldn't want to have to, go into that and end up upside down in terms of the money that we're going to have to spend to bring it up to par or to where we want it to be. So I don't know if we do. I don't know how we do that. Do we dig a little deeper? Do we get a contractor? How do we examine what we can't see and kind of determine what additional costs will occur?
I think it might, I think it might involve a bigger discussion about exactly what we want, but so that they can then estimate for us. So I think whatever we do, we're still going to have hype our current year. Like I can't imagine, or whatever, like if we decide, something else would work there better. But if we go in and say, hey, can you make us some additional classrooms? Can you make us, this? What does that look like, replacing HVAC, and then having a real evaluation? But I will say for me, and when I've been thinking about it, my sense is that if we are deeded this, and if it turns out that what we want to do is too expensive, then we are under no obligation at that point to keep it. We could sell that property then.
Or deed it to someone.
Or deed it to another organization in the community that says, hey, we have a good plan, and this is what we can do. So I completely understand what you're saying. I would hate to lose a facility because there's so much unknown at this point. That would be my thought.
Here's where I'm at. I feel like, number one, it's so sad to see that the Boys and Girls Club shut down.
Yes.
It had nothing to do with us as a school system, but it does have to do with us as a community.
Absolutely.
When this opportunity came for us to maybe be able to take that building under our wings, gives a little bit of hope to the community that in some way, whether it's the after-school programming or other things, can still have the general concept of helping children out in our community, and that's exciting. The fact that it can be just deeded back to us, we're not having to have a huge expense. The offset with the hype really is pretty nominal, so it's kind of a wash, but then it is our building. It also has 2 gymnasiums. You guys, everyone at this table knows and the community knows how short we are on gym space. It does give the place for kids in the wintertime, especially, let alone all year long, to go have another basketball practice or whatever's going on in those spaces. I know U Sports has basketball stuff and gets short on space there, so that gives 2 other gyms that are sometimes going to be available. But ultimately, the opportunity for us to take this is a no-brainer and see how it goes. I do think I was had the pleasure to walk through with Dave and his Kaloff and his team, and talk to a lot of them who has a really good knowledge in buildings and how the maintenance and stuff works. And I feel pretty good in their assessment of that the bones are good, but there is going to be an investment there, whether that's $60,000 to get it where we need for height, or 100 or 200. That's going to have to come in a time. But I think, like you had said, we can figure that over the next month or two and figure that out. Ultimately, for me, from the understanding that I know, I would love for us to get that number, start working on it, get it opened up for height second semester coming January, and then decide what other things we would want to do or not want to do as time went on. But this gives us a pathway of that without having to make any huge financial decisions. The biggest thing that I think the community needs to understand as with what the legislators are doing in the state of Indiana and forcing us to cut $3 million out of our budget in the next 3 years, and that's of in-school stuff. It's sad for us to not be able to say, hey, we'll just take on this $300,000 to do an after-school program, but there is by no means a reality of us as a corporation doing that. And I know a lot of people in the community right now want us to just run it and do it, but that is not in the cards. $3 million is an enormous amount of education funding that we are losing. And I don't want to get too far in the other side, but I'm hoping people are listening to this or will listen to this tonight, because it is a big ticket item for the community, because they do care. You have to talk to your legislators on funding for our schools. If we weren't cutting $3 million in the next 3 years, we as a system may have been able to say, hey, let's take on this $260,000, because we have some rainy day fund stuff, we've got some other opportunities, we get some grants, we get some community foundation or community partners, community funding, that kind of stuff. We could have said, let's just do this, but that's not where we are in the state of Indiana. You have got, and I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat or Independent, it's irrelevant. If you care about public education, you have to get a hold of your people and let them know that it's becoming really difficult to be a public education anything. Whether it's sitting at the school board, administration, kids, teachers, whatever, we need help. We need assistance for our public schools. We need to take it seriously. We've got to get funding back in general, and that makes all the rest of this a lot easier to deal with. I know I got way in the weeds, but it's an important thing, because I think we forget sometimes the overall picture that is so much bigger. Overall, I think this is a great opportunity that we need to run on and get a decision to move forward on.
Other board comments or questions while we're here?
I would like to say something. I have not seen the building on the inside. I was there once for a high school basketball practice, but I've not walked in all the rooms. I think it's a good idea to receive it. At the same time, if we receive it, I am not in favor of doing a minimal redesign in order to put anything in it. I would like to see us very seriously look at what will be the space use. Is it going to be adequate for what we have? Classrooms, if, for example, if we move height, we want it to be an excellent facility. We want our young people to feel like this is ours. This is a part of, this is our education, and we want them to feel like we're making this move for the good of the district and for their long-term, for everything long-term. So I'd like to, now I've heard about the air conditioning, the HVAC, and we know when we've looked at the chiller here, that was what, $2 million? And I'm thinking that HVAC is a very expensive kind of investment. So I don't think 60,000 is at all relevant. Yeah. So I'm thinking that in terms of putting the building in shape for a quality educational program, I'm thinking $500,000 is likely. And if we're willing to make that kind of investment, okay, so that means I don't think that we're going to do anything second semester. We may not even be able to do anything next year. We need to make sure that if we take the building, that we're going to provide a quality location. I look around this. This is a lovely room. We want lovely to be in every place that we bring our students. And I've tangentially, we've had some of our hype students pass away in the last little while. And we're going to be moving, if we're moving our students to a new place, we want them to be able to celebrate the new place. We want them to feel good about it. I think that if we make the investment in the building that we ought to make, they'll be very proud of it. Whether they're there for the short term and then brought back into the system, that's great. But it just needs to be quality. So I'm not looking at taking the deed and then doing something that is, I don't know what the right word is. Pardon me?
Okay. And then just rushing into something.
Yeah.
Is that
I would say, we've talked about that, and that's why I said, we want to do it right if we're going to take this building. We know that there are some things to do. We've even talked about how it's more cost effective that we do it before anybody moves in there than trying to work around students that are in there and other programs. I agree with you, Dr. Hart. If this is something that we're going to do and we're going to make it the best we can as a facility for our students and a facility for our community in the evenings, then that's going to take some planning and some other things to do that are going to take much longer than just a couple of weeks or a couple of months.
Which is one of the huge reasons why we couldn't even consider the personnel portion of this. Like, this is
Absolutely.
like everything you're saying are absolutely valid discussions to be had. I just don't think we're there yet. And so while I actually do agree with you, I think comparing the high school chiller to that is just a little bit like, I want to make sure that it's an entirely different space. So that is not the level of expenditure. I agree that it's probably going to be more than what we want, and I further agree that anything that has MCS on it needs to be done well. But KLOF, I think, has demonstrated in building after building after building that we actually do that. And so even when we have gone into many a facility and then continue to make, like, I agree that we should make the majority of the improvements before anyone goes in there. But the fact that we continue, this room didn't look like this when I started. So we, as a manner of planning and doing things in a careful, thoughtful way, we can do that over the next few years. And so that would be my...
I would like to see the building also, and I think, Mrs. Lockwood, you said that after this session, we're not voting now, after this session, we can go inside and take a look at it, perhaps.
I thought if there are more people that wanted to on the board to go in and look at that I could try to see if we could get the keys and get you in there to look at it.
I completely agree that we don't want to just throw our kids into a really junky circumstance. We do have to also realize that we are at that Faulkner building that is 100 years old probably, and while we have made good work of it and we have made it comfortable for our kids and safe and all, we also kind of have to realize where we are now. So I don't want to wait necessarily 2 years to get $1 million in building funds to get it up to some brand new whatever, or even $500,000 if in 6 months KLOF and his crew and whoever we would bring in look at it and say, hey, for X amount of dollars, we could do it by second semester, and it would be a comfortable place that is fitting for the amount of classrooms and office space and kitchen and that stuff. So I think really those are kind of premature in a way that until we get those information, we don't know. But we also have to compare it to where we are. We can say we don't want to put it into something that's a little bit subpar, but if we're already at a building that's 100 years old, it's not ours, and we're not going to put too much investment into it because of that, but we have a building at that point that we did acquire, we need to be aware of that and be willing to kind of have a concession of let's move in knowing it may not be perfect, but it is better. And I think that's something to be keeping aware of and monitoring financially and just everything as we move forward.
And also keeping in mind that we have other buildings that need the care. So if we add another building that needs care, we have.
Yeah, we can't dump all of our facility funding into one building.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good discussion, yeah. Do we have other board comments yet? Okay. We'll move to public comments. We had just the one. Mr. Todd Nicholson.
My name is Todd Nicholson. I know some of you, others I don't. You did a great job of explaining about the two primary revenue streams available to Marion Community Schools. There is another revenue stream available to the schools, and that is because...
Hey, Todd, we need to have you introduce yourself with your street address and all of that.
My name's Todd Nicholson. I live at 910 in Euclid Avenue in Marion.
Thank you.
Okay.
And for those of you at home who are watching, we have Mr. Nicholson.
Okay. I was speaking of a revenue stream that's possible from a redevelopment commission, and we are under the a redevelopment commission that captures some of the assessed valuation in our district. Baker Tilly, the financial consultant who advises our redevelopment commission, has identified that they are going to be able to receive multi-million-dollar surpluses probably over the next 10 or 12 years from the assessed valuation that is in their district. I think it would be worthwhile if you might consider, number one, calculating how much assessed valuation we would need to add to ours to generate 300, 400,000, whatever you felt like would be needed to take on this obligation, and put a request in front of Mr. Reese that they release that amount of assessed valuation to us. That way, that would generate that amount of money, not just once to one time like a grant would, but that would be there to use year after year after year.
The city.
I would also suggest that if perhaps you're not as familiar with this as you would like to be, that you might talk to the expert that we've assessed before, Mr. Finkel. We can help. I can give you his contact information because he is the Indiana guru on redevelopment commissions and how units of government that do fall under their jurisdiction have been able to access some of the funds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Has there already been some money allocated from the commission, the redevelopment commission for this year?
Yeah.
Yes, they asked.
Oh, there is? Okay.
There was.
And it was approved, I believe.
It was approved.
And do we know how much that was?
That's $50,000, I believe.
Is that no matter who owns the building?
That I don't know.
I don't know that.
That would be something that...
If it went to Boys and Girls Club, it wouldn't be ours anymore.
That would be
Yeah.
okay, so it's not for the building.
It wouldn't even be
It's, okay,
for our current board, right? Like, it would go to Fort Wayne.
okay.
Mr. Delgado, are you talking about 25, 26, the amount of money?
Yes.
Okay, so the amount of money that...
Specifically to the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay, so the amount of money that came from the commission to the school district was $100,000.
Grand Regional.
Yeah.
That was for the GRC.
Yes. Okay, but 50,000 you say from the...
That was a grant that was requested by the Boys and Girls Club to the city.
So that came from the redevelopment commission?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I think it's a great suggestion. There's at least, I don't know if I would go to 4, but I think there's about $2 million available each year for the next several years. And there is that percentage that I believe is suggested. Maybe the recent legislation has made it required that 15% of the annual annual amount of money from the tax deferral should be available to the public school district. And our redevelopment commission has, since it's Marion, they've chosen to do it to Marion schools. I think it's an excellent idea to request. 2 years ago or a year ago, I guess it was December of 2024, we asked for 7.5%, which I believe was $150,000. They gave us $100,000. And I think it's a great thing to be thinking in terms of what it is that amount that we would like, and then recognize there'll be some negotiation, and there'd be something less that the commission might want to give. But something as important as this, it could be something that would spark their interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be interesting to see the $50,000 that was supposed to go to the Boys and Girls Club, to talk to whoever made that decision. Was their intention that that money was specifically for Marion? Right. Was it for specifically any specific activities, or was it just for the building or building upkeep? Was it for the kids or whatever? And then when we find out some of that information or have discussions, it's potential that that money could still stay with that building, knowing that it will go back to the kids. So I'm in the mindset of if the city and the redevelopment commission decided this was important for the kids, even though it's maybe transitioned to height, it's still for our kids in the community, that they would potentially be willing to still release that $50,000, which could help with some of the initial improvements. I know there may be one or classroom or two classrooms we kind of have to adjust or shift, and some of that, some of the electrical stuff with the lighting and the moisture, there's a lot of expenses that we're going to have to take, that maybe that could go towards that, and maybe we could put a proposal together for the redevelopment commission on that $50,000, because that's already there. It's already been allocated, so obviously they could take it back and give it to somebody else most likely. Or it's possible that maybe that money just gets lost in the Fort Wayne Boys and Girls Club, which I would hate to see, because I don't think, if the money is not left, I would really challenge the redevelopment commission, if it's possible, to make sure that that does not just leave our community. Sure. And then long term, I do think that was a good point to look at bringing up a proposal for a long-term funding. Could they say, we'll put $400,000 a year for after-school programming, and then it's just funded. It's a lot easier for us to make the decision to hire these staff all back and have this program and whatever, when we know we've got $400,000 a year to make it work. And we're in a period of time where that's how things will happen. We're going to have a collaboration of everybody. I know there's been lots of different groups that some people say are competing, whether it's YMCA or what's the after-school program? The training center. A lot of people say they're competing, but they have been right there on the doorstep to try and help work out ideas of what we can do. That's the one benefit I take from all of this happening that's really sad, is that a lot of people are stepping up and starting to have discussions, but you got to put money where your mouth is. Because everybody can have great intentions and show up with a paintbrush, but that doesn't do it. So it's going to take the collaboration and probably a lot of brainstorming from a lot of people. But I think we're on the right step. I think all of these discussions and conversations are good. I do appreciate that the public is interested in it, and while I wish there would be more people tonight, I do think that people will listen to this and get wind of this, and that will hopefully spark up some interest in helping with the long-term possible collaboration and sustainability of all of this.
And I would agree, just the task at hand tonight was to have a discussion on, whether we should be acquiring the property or not. And, with that, to know that we wouldn't have to put not one penny into it, it would be needed to us, and if it comes down to it and it's just too much for us, but the potential is there, I feel like, and there's potential revenue streams, the building, we can get it and make it what it needs to be if so. I mean, I feel like that we would be doing a disservice to Marion Community Schools if we didn't take it over and, just kind of see where it can go from there. So, after the discussion, all my questions were answered, so I didn't have any other questions, but, after the discussion, I think that it would be a good idea to at least acquire the building and see where it goes from there. And again, we don't have to decide right now. It's just whether or not we want to acquire this building or not acquire this building. And I think that there's a lot of potential there, and there's potential to do a lot of good things there. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Very good.
I have one more question.
Sure.
I assume the answer is yes, but once we have the building, are we permitted to rent it out to private entities, evenings?
Yeah, I mean, we have processes put in place where we rent out other spaces at the school system. So there is facility rental that is available, and that would go under there as long as, I guess, everything were, and I'm sure it is, but safe, and we had a chance to check everything out. But yeah.
My experience has been those are things that we do as a thank you to the community, not a revenue stream. Those become things we do that actually become probably more of a hassle and cost us money, not a revenue stream though.
I think for part of me, and I do want to say this, and this is just where my heart is at with it. My brothers grew up in the Boys and Girls Club, not this particular building, but when it was on Clark Street, my dad spent a lot of time at the Boys and Girls Club coaching with Curtis McClung and Mike McMillan and a lot of other people. So what the Boys and Girls Club can do for kids and for families, I have absolutely seen that impact even within my own family and the relationships that they were able to build. I would like us, if at all possible, and I think that's what I think everybody was talking about when you come together as a community and get funds together, to keep the heart of why that building was built in the first place. And when you go back and you look at the history of the people that even put money up and why it was built and the kids that go there, I would love to be able to keep the integrity of the heart of why that place was put there. And if we could do that as a school system and build community partnerships with other people to keep that going for the kids in our community, for me, I would much rather see us move in that direction than to acquire this building to make money off of. And I'm not saying that's what you mean, but I think as the superintendent and where I stand in seeing this building, I do see a lot of possibility, but I see a lot of possibility for us to keep the heart of why that building was even put there in the first place. And that's what I would like to see happen with it. So I will leave it at that.
Very good. Any other board comments or questions? And no other public comments, is that right? Okay. Well, I thank you everyone for coming. I'll remind you that we have the regular meeting this Tuesday where we'll have the official vote. And so thank you all for coming. I appreciate your time. This meeting is now adjourned.
You said 10 till.